I think it was the Lower East Side. And between footsteps, I was struck informed. I said this to a friend of mine once. What are you talking about? What do you mean? What does that mean? What does that mean, struck informed? And what finally got through to my friend was, between one step and another, I suddenly knew myself to be under orders. There was no agency I could see. I'm not going to try to explain. I'm just going to report my experience to you. Between footsteps, once I was just blithely walking down the street, and the next step, I knew that I was under orders to get out of town. And I didn't know, it wasn't in English, there were no, the intelligence, the import of what happened was unmistakable, irrefutable, but I didn't hear words or anything. But I said, okay, and I said back to whatever messenger there was, I'll just get my affairs in order, and as soon as I get a place to stay in and a ride to either LA or San Francisco, I'll go. I heard nothing, so I started paying my bills. I mean, I started catching up on them. And I got a call from a girl that I'd met in DC. She said, hi, I'm living in Southern California. You can stay here if you ever get out here. I said, great. Didn't think about it. Walked into a bar. Some people, I'm not even sure I knew them. They said, we're going to LA. Want to come? So I lit out for LA and landed in Southern California, in Orange County really, which is the next county south of Los Angeles. End of June, middle of '65. Knocked around, tried to get a little work. It's hard to get work in Southern California because everything is driving distance in LA. In Greenwich Village, there were 9 clubs within a 4-block walk, you know. It's a very different kettle of fish. And I was about to give up, and I wandered into the club, kind of presuming on my acquaintance with the lady who worked there, this one club, a place called the Golden Bear in Huntington Beach, California. And I was beginning to wear out my welcome. I'm telling you, they were looking weirdly at me. And just then the assistant manager came up and said, listen, we need somebody in the back to go, you know, draw beers and bus tables and wash dishes. I said, yes, thank God, and give me that job. And I took the job and was working for a little while. A lot of great acts came through there. Lenny Bruce came through there. Big Brother and the Holding Company, a group called the New Lost City Ramblers, who included Pete Seeger's brother Mike. They were an old-timey string band, all these many, and some other acts too. But I did that for a little while, and it was okay. And then I was beginning to get bored. I told the owner I was about ready to leave, and he said, wait a minute. Remember you promised that you'd stick around and accompany a couple of acts that were coming through. I said, we agreed, right? I have to provide an accompanist as part of my gig, and it was going to be you. And I went, oh yeah, okay, all right. So I stuck around for a little longer, played guitar behind a girl named Lynn Hughes. Blues guitar was kind of my first stint with that. And I played bass with a Supremes type singing group called the Apollos, who amazingly wound up opening for the Monkees on one of the Monkees tours. Yeah, there they are. I like the other one. And then these 2 guys came through, a guy named Ron Long and another guy, and they called themselves the Buffalo Fish, and the other guy was Steve Stills. And I played piano for them, and then they went on their way, and I was about ready to go on my way after all. I'd fulfilled my commitment. Oh, what's next? And Steve called me up on the phone. He said, Peter, I met a guy at a party, and it turns out he's a producer, and he's making a TV show based on A Hard Day's Night. You should go try out. I said, well, what about you? He said, and I more or less quote, that's him. A couple of other folks. He said, well, they liked me well enough, but they thought that my hair and teeth weren't going to be photogenic, and it wouldn't look good on television. And did I know anybody who looked like me who had 1/10 my talent? And I thought about you, Peter. I fixed him good. I gave him Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. He's never forgiven me. So I hung up the phone. Yes, Steve, thanks very much. I hung up the phone. And he called back. He said, no, really, go try it. Oh, all right. I wasn't gonna. But he called back. I don't know what messenger was talking to him. But I had saved enough money to afford bus fare back up to Hollywood, and I walked into, I thought I was going to walk in and they were going to give me special dispensation because I was a friend of Steve Stills, who knew one of the producers. I walked into the cattle call. You know, a dozen guys, more or less, hanging around, all of them twiddling their thumbs, and everybody waiting, except for one short kid who just cockily walked right through the room into the producer's office and cockily walked right back out again. And I said, who is that twerp? That was him. I walked into one of the producer's offices, and he had his feet up on his desk. I put my feet up on his desk too because I didn't care. And I guess he liked me well enough. He sent me to the other producer's office. That was Bert Schneider and then Bob Rafelson. And then they said, okay, thanks for coming in. I went back down to Huntington Beach, and they called me up and they said, come on up, we're going to give you what they call a personality test. Now, it's like a screen test, only a screen test is they give you a script and you have to do the directions and you have to watch for the lights and hit your mark and do all the things that you would do if you were actually being shot. But the personality test, now, some of you know this, when Bert and Bob made the pilot, they showed it to a test audience and it rated abysmal. It rated 0. Couldn't go any worse than that. And they thought, what was wrong with this? What was wrong with this? And then they recut it with Mike's and Davy's personality tests. And suddenly, the new product went through the roof. Turned out that the pilot, without you knowing who these guys were, the pilot was just 4 jerks wreaking mayhem. It wasn't funny. As soon as you knew who they were, or as soon as you had an idea that these were actual people that you could know, suddenly it was all fun and games. And it was because of that the pilot sold. So they shot one of those for me. I'm going to get out of the way while you watch it.
You're not going to do that. Sit down here and talk sense.
Abdevkish kulnap Christoph Wickshes.
What is that?
It's the alphabet. Abdevkish kulnap Christoph Wickshes.
Peter,
There's not much to believe that's true.
now truly, why? Why do you want to be a monkey?
Well, it's my natural inheritance. I mean, it's life.
Being a TV star, does that ever occur to you, man? Like, we fished you out of nowhere.
That's true. I'm eternally grateful, too. I'll do anything.
Hey, Peter, where are you from originally?
Washington.
How'd you get out here?
It wasn't easy.
Tell me the truth.
It was a 47 Chevy, most of the way.
Anything frantic happened on the way out?
Well, it blew
Whereabouts?
just outside of Las Vegas. It took all of Las Vegas with it. You may have heard about it. It was the major catastrophe of the century.
What's the matter with your mouth?
Yeah, interesting. It cost me $500 for the nose.
Do guys look at you and say, hey, what are you doing with the long hair and all that?
No, but they often say, hey! I'm ashamed of my fellow man to tell you what my fellow man actually says to me on the street. Do you know that...
What do they say to you?
Joe Beetle! Joe Beetle! Just because I... Do they realize that since history, our founding fathers wore their hair long, Columbus wore his hair long, and...
Good shit, singer?
I love it. Love to run their fingers through my soft, silky hair.
Nothing has changed. So, I got selected, and we made the pilot, as I said before, and then I went back home to my parents for Christmas. And along about the middle of January, I said, why haven't I heard something one way or the other? And I called and they said, Peter, we didn't have a phone number for you. Get back here, the thing's been sold. Yippee! And, so we got together. We didn't know each other. The first thing they did, the producers, was send us out to the desert to make a commercial, Kellogg's commercial, which...
The Monkees, brought to you by Kellogg. K-E-double-L-O double good. Kellogg's best to
On our way to the desert, not knowing each other, conversation was not thick and heavy. Nice day. Hungry? We pulled off about halfway down to the desert, pulled off in some little diner, sat in a booth. Mickey sat here, Davey sat over there, Mike over here. And for some reason, Mickey's and my salads came first. And the way I ate salad, the fork goes into the bowl, what comes out of the fork goes in the mouth. Mickey must have been the same way. Davey says, you pigs. Anyone would think you was raised in a barn the way you guys is eating. I picked out only the smallest pieces of that. Davey's salad came, glanced up at the waitress and said, thank her. Picked up his knife and fork and sliced his salad into 1-inch strips. Turned the bowl 90 degrees and cut the strips into 1-inch squares. Put down his knife and fork, soaked the salad in some creamy dressing. Picked up the knife and fork and tossed it until each and every square inch of lettuce was soaked in chunky blue cheese dressing. Put down the knife and fork, grabbed a fistful of it, and smashed it into his face. So that was my introduction to David Jones.